Yo, everyone, DrJaceAttorney here, returning to the table once again as we hoist the mainsail and set a course for the Grand Line. And today's island of adventure is the hit new indie game, Elsie. Now, I don't know if I should call this type of video a should you buy it, should you play it? Let me know down in the comments below because I've never really done a video like this before outside of my Mega Man X4 video, which you should see a link to somewhere in the video right now. We're basically ad-libbing this whole thing and just kind of opening the door to make it more of a conversation type of video compared to our other ones. And yeah, if you guys want to see more videos like this, be sure to leave a like down below, comment what your favorite moment was from Elsie, subscribe most importantly if you're new to the channel, and click that bell icon so you stay up to date whenever we upload new content. So anyways, what is Elsie? As read from its Steam page, Elsie is a technicolor, hyperkinetic, roguelike action platformer filled with procedurally generated levels, an army of robots to blast through, and a wide scope of items and weaponry to make each run unique. Master countless magitek weapons and abilities in order to embrace the chaos. Now, this game comes from the folks over at Night Shift Games, and from what little information I could find on them on the internet, I think they were established in 2017, and the publisher is Platonic Friends. Yes, folks, that Platonic, the ones who developed Ukulele. Platonic Friends is basically their publishing branch, which they partner with other indie developers to produce indie games. Now, full disclosure, I was provided a review code from the folks over at Platonic for the purposes of this review. However, there's no any contractual stipulations or embargoes on the actual topics I'll be getting into with this game. I'm allowed to talk about the nitty-gritty, both the pros and the cons, so you're going to be hearing both of those in this review, and hopefully you can come to a decision based on that whether or not you should pick up Elsie today, whether you're playing it on Steam or on PlayStation or the Switch. Now, if you guys want the short and sweet answer as to whether or not you should play or pick up Elsie, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think it's a resounding yes. I had a lot of fun playing through this game. I don't have too much exposure when it comes to the roguelike genre. I'm aware of the game Dead Cells, but I personally haven't played it myself, but I'm aware that a lot of the aesthetic choices seem to borrow elements from a game like Dead Cells. But if there's one roguelike that I have played and I thoroughly enjoyed was Hades. So in terms of pros and cons, you're gonna be seeing me comparing the two a lot throughout this video. Now, what sets Elsie apart from your typical roguelike game, at least in my opinion from what little exposure I've had in the genre, is that it oozes a lot of Mega Man charm. If you guys know me, there's two blue bastards that I cannot get enough of, and that's Sonic the goddamn Hedgehog and Mega Man, specifically Mega Man X. And as I was playing through Elsie, I saw little bits and pieces that reminded me not so much of Sonic, maybe somewhat with how much the speed can be kicked up a notch, but more specifically with Mega Man. Elsie can wall kick like X, use a vast assortment of weapons, and has a huge arsenal of spells and upgrades at her disposal. And these were one of the things I really liked on each run that I had with Elsie. For those that don't know, in a roguelike game, the point of the game is to get as far as you can within the levels that are procedurally generated, with the hopes that you get just a little bit farther with each subsequent run. And while you may lose almost everything on a particular run should you die, you are slowly making progression to making your character that much stronger. And in Elsie, that's exactly what you get. Every time you go through a run, you're collecting scrap metal to go back to your base and unlock new features for each subsequent run that you may go on. You're getting arc light coins, which is a form of currency for you to unlock even additional upgrades for future runs. And the list goes on and on as to how much you're unlocking every time you die in a game like Elsie. And listen, I'm a simple guy. One of the cool things that I really like in games in general is having that hub area that slowly upgrades over the course of you playing the game. where you may see additional buildings, additional people populating that headquarters, and so on. It gives that feel of nice progression, like you're slowly growing an in-game family in a way. And throughout the course of this game, you're literally going to be doing just that. You're going to be encountering different characters throughout the game that unlock new additional features on your future runs, and you may even unlock shopkeepers or vendors that unlock new weapons or spells for future runs. And man, are you going to need all the help you can get, because when Elsie gets chaotic and has all these beautiful sprites laid out on the screen at you once you're going full Mega Man burst mode, it gets really hype. I'm not gonna lie, the highs are really high in a game like Elsie. And I think part of that is due to the charm of the game overall. It has this nice 16-bit retro art style that I'm always a sucker for. I feel like this art style is never really going to phase out of existence in terms of popularity because of how well it ages. You're gonna look at a game like Elsie from like 10, 15, 20 years from now, and it's still gonna hold up pretty well. Like, these type of games just never spoil over the course of time. But I think what helps that even more are the character portraits for all the characters. They help breathe life into this world. They're super detailed and expressive, and I can't get enough of them every time I encounter a new character on a run to return them back to my base, and I get to just stare at them sometimes and see their cool little sprite work, or even their character art should I decide to talk to them. Now, if there's one thing that can be a major problem in a game like Elsie, is the enemy variety. Sometimes in a roguelike game, especially if you're replaying it over and over again, you're going to start seeing the same enemies time and time again, and probably at some point it's gonna get a little stale. But I'm glad to say that with Elsie, every single time that I've played the game, and I played it a lot, I honestly lost track of how many runs I've done of Elsie. It has to be somewhere in the 30s to 50s of multiple runs and multiple playthroughs that I've done of the game. However, shockingly enough, every single time I did that, there were still new enemy types and new enemy variety to surprise me on each new run. And the levels are evenly split up, so you kind of know what to expect in terms of enemy variety. You know, you have your cauldron / fire level to go through, you have your ice level, jungle level, and the cool thing about it is that if you see an enemy type in the jungle level, you're likely not going to see them in another level type. So you're not going to see a plant type enemy in the cauldron / fire level. It just wouldn't make sense. He would burn to a crisp, honestly. And speaking of enemy variety, I gotta give the devs props, man. When you start getting to the end of some of these stages and you encounter that stage's boss, man, are these so fun to go through. I like experiencing what new boss is going to appear, what their sprite work looks like, what their attack animations are. And to this day, even as I'm editing this video to release, I still haven't experienced all the bosses that the game has to offer. There's just so many of them, and it's going to require multiple runs of Elsie to actually see everything. So I'm super excited for that, and I can't wait to see what other bosses the game has in store. However, what good is boss or enemy variety if you don't have a vast arsenal of weapons and spells to choose from to help spice up your gameplay? Elsie delivers on that front too. You'll get multiple types of weapons ranging from energy pistols to energy snipers and shotguns, and then the spell variety is pretty good too. There's one where it's like a giant icicle nuke where it basically nukes the entire screen with ice, and it's super fun to pull off. There's also some where you can summon drones to help shoot your way through a lot of these enemy-filled rooms. And not to mention the parry system. This one took like maybe a little bit to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's really, really nifty. Basically, you pull the left trigger, assuming you're playing on a controller like I was, and Elsie will kind of like enter this void, as best as I can describe it. Basically, she's immune to damage for like a couple seconds as she pulls that off. And then she can also counterattack should you time the window perfectly against an enemy. I wasn't using this technique at first on my first couple runs, but as I started dying more and more on each subsequent run because I kept getting hit by the bullet hell that's going off on the entire screen, at one point I was like, yeah, I probably should use this feature in the game. But once I started using it, it, it became like second nature, and I was pulling it constantly in all of these rooms. And I really like the freedom of choice when it comes to a lot of these upgrades that Elsie provides. You know, as you go into some of these rooms, you really have to decide, hey, what kind of upgrade do I want? Do I want plus 30% critical hit rate? Do I want a boost in HP, in weapon energy recovery? Because you have to balance all these things together. If there's one thing that Elsie doesn't let you do, is just let you hold the fire button and just go blasting like hell. You have to manage things. You have this blue meter on the top left of the screen, and if you're just holding down the fire button the entire time, you're going to start realizing, oh man, my shots are getting really, really low firing rate, and now I'm not able to pull off any of my other subsequent moves. So I like that balance in the sense that it kind of forces you into a weapon management state of mind. Pay attention to your weapon meter, get new upgrades that help offset that energy output, or maybe you need more HP. Maybe you need more SP to pull off some of these other techniques that you can pull off, like the spells I mentioned earlier. Choices, choices, choices. That's what I like in my roguelite, and I think Elsie delivers that in spades. But enough gushing about the game. What are some of the cons with it? And when I say cons, I kind of see them more as personal nitpicks. They're not really cons in the sense that they make the game worse or they give you a bad time. They're just little things here and there that I feel like can either be patched out in an update or DLC. But one of the things that kind of pulled me out in being immersed in this world was that the characters are partially voice acted. I got through mentioning earlier that I love the sprite work on these characters, and I really do enjoy their character portraits when you get to see them through certain cutscenes. Now, don't get me wrong, you will be able to hear what Elsie and certain other characters sound like throughout the course of the game, but I feel like those instances are so few and far between. There were multiple times where I got into a dialogue exchange with an NPC in the world, and I wondered, why isn't this voice acted? I want to be immersed in this. I want to actually feel the character's presence through hearing their voice. And I'm going to take it back to a game like Hades. In Hades, practically every line of script has voice acting in it, and I think that was part of the charm in a game like that that helped immerse me into the world that Supermassive Games was trying to create. Now, there is a story with Elsie. Now, it's pretty simplistic and on the nose. In all honesty, when I first heard the story of Elsie in the first couple cutscenes, it just reminded me of Mega Man. And while that's totally fine and I'm okay with that, I wish I could have been pulled into the world a little bit more by just adding in those couple extra lines of voice acting. There were dialogue boxes where I was almost expecting them to start talking in cutscenes, and all I hear is nothing. I just hear a little quip from them about maybe a hello, and that's about it. And it's a shame because the voice acting that you do get in the game is really good, and I just wanted to see more of that. There's also the tutorial section where I feel like in a game like this where there's a lot going on in terms of how you can traverse a level, whether it's dashing or countering or managing your weapon energy, I wish the game told you everything from the beginning. But what it does instead is that with each subsequent run as you're starting off the game, it introduces to you a new feature. Not one that you didn't have access to before, but one where they tell you how to pull it off. And the reason why that can be frustrating is how I'm going to show you right now. There was an early run of Elsie that I did. It was probably my third or fourth run as I'm going through the game, still learning the mechanics and whatnot. And I got to this room, I believe it was the cauldron fire area, and there's these little circle like nucleus looking things that you can interact with in the environment, but at the time of playing that run, I didn't know how to interact with it. I tried looking up controls, I tried pressing all the buttons with these little circle thingies, and nothing was working. I was practically soft locked in this room because I didn't know what the game wanted me to do, and that was the most frustrating part because this is my first time getting an early access review code, so my first initial thought was, well, let me just Google it. But I can't Google something that's not released to the general public yet. So at that moment, I realized I think I honestly have to self-delete at this point and start over a new run. And it's almost as if the game was actively trolling me because right as soon as I self-deleted and started another run of Elsie, that is when the game decided to tell me or give me a tutorial on how to get past an obstacle like that. that was super frustrating because it came right after I self-deleted on the prior run for that very reason. So maybe it could be done in an update or something, but I would rather have the game teach you everything you need to know on your first run, and then you learn to master it on subsequent runs, not give you one element on each run, like here's how you shoot on run 1. Then when you go to run 2, here's how you wall kick. And then on run 3, it teaches you how to interact with those nucleus ball things. So I wish they did that. That was just honestly really frustrating. But again, like I'm saying, these are really more so nitpicks and nothing that knocks the quality of the game itself. Like a couple of times when things got really chaotic on screen, I think the sound got cut off from the game and then it would come back in a couple seconds. But again, I think that's just an update. I think they could just fix that with a post-launch patch and things will be Goldilocks from there. I'm just telling you things from what my experience was with the game in pre-release. And one final thing that kind of grinded my gears a little bit and was a little frustrating because I wasn't sure if I was doing something wrong on my end is that sometimes when you get to the end of each run and do a quick boss battle at the very end, is that sometimes you're on a roll in a run of Elsie, you have a crap ton of upgrades, you have so much weapons at your disposal, and you're basically this walking mechanical god on that particular run. And sometimes you'll get to like your 3rd or 4th boss or so, and once you defeat that boss, the run just practically ends. Elsie will call in her doctor and say, oh, by the way, this looks like a dead end. I'm gonna go back and return to base. And those moments were really aggravating because I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, I can keep going. Why are you stopping here? Because once again, I'm gonna tie it back to Hades, where if you get to the end of your run on Hades and you defeat the final boss of that run, you're rewarded with a bit of story progression. You get to unravel the mystery of what is really going on in that world. And I wish Elsie was more rewarding in that sense, because when you do get story progression, which you mainly get when you're fighting one of the 8 or 7 guardians that are the main enemies of this game, it feels really good. You get to fight them, you get to hear the voice acting, full-blown voice acting, by the way. These are the one scenes where I was so taken aback and shocked at, where every line of dialogue between Elsie and one of the guardians was fully voice acted. And that's what blew my mind, because I'm like, wait a minute, if these scenes are fully voice acted, why isn't everything else? Mind you, there's a couple scenes that are fully voice acted, but for the most part, if I'm gonna give it a percentage, I want to say 60 to 70% of the game is not fully voice acted. Again, you'll hear little quips and quotes here and there from the characters, but in terms of fully voice acted scenes, you're really only gonna get it here and there. But going back to the Guardians, I wasn't sure what I was doing wrong, because on certain runs, I would get to the end, I would fight one of the other robot bosses of the game, and then Elsie would just say, hey, let's call it quits here, let's go back to base. And it would be super frustrating because I didn't get any story progression on that run, and it kind of just felt a little cheesed out a little bit. But to be fair, you're still getting upgrades on each run no matter what, and you're getting stronger each and every time you return to base. So it's not like they rob you of anything like that. But other than that, guys, those are the only really cons that I have to say about this game. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed this game despite the few cons or quirks that I had with it. You know, sometimes you just want to kick back, relax, and enjoy a shooter roguelike game, and I think Elsie delivers. I'm really curious what this dev is going to deliver in the future, if this game's going to get future DLC, because this game was so much fun to blast through. And as I'm done recording this, I'm likely going to boot this up again so I can try and get further on the next run, try and encounter that next Guardian, and see what lies in store in the future. But let me know what you think, guys. Are you at all interested in Elsie? Did I do enough in this video to convince you to get it? Because again, I feel like what the game delivers in terms of positives far, far, far outweighs anything negative the game might have. And despite what negatives I mentioned, I have to emphasize again, they're just minor annoyances in the grand scheme of things. I think what the folks over at Night Shift Games made here is really, really nice. It has a lot of charm, it has a lot of heart, and I'm a sucker for Mega Man. If you make a game that reminds me of Mega Man, I'm likely gonna give you a bunch of praise. As long as it's a good Mega Man. This is a good Mega Man. So The folks over at Night Shift Games, thank you so much for making Elsie, and I can't wait to see what they have in store next. But let me know what you guys think of the game in the comments below. Are you picking up Elsie? Have you already played it at this point? And what was your craziest run that you've had with the game so far? Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and make sure to click that bell icon so you stay up to date whenever we upload new content. I am DrJaceAttorney, folks. Court is adjourned, and we'll see you on the next one.